today. We do know that unforeseen circumstances, as we are now told, has forced Parliament to step down a motion on the Constitutional Amendment Bill currently before the House. The bill seeks to make changes to the country's election date. The Speaker of Parliament, however, wants the House to fast-track the motion in view of its effects on the organization of the 2016 general elections. Well, like I said, everybody was eagerly anticipating this very meeting in Parliament today, but now the reasons we are given has to do with unforeseen circumstances that has made it impossible for the main parties to this very amendment. We're told that they are held up in other meetings. The minority leader, Sechi Mensah, made it quite clear that one of such persons was held in a cabinet meeting. So it made it a bit difficult for us to have that very amendment process seen through. But aside that, Parliament has also been considering a few other things, particularly the NABMO bill, which they've been discussing for some time now. We can now cross over once more to Parliament and bring you some more on happenings in the August House now.
Members, I have been instructed that indeed clause 44, the question was put and it was agreed to that it should be part of the bill from the records. If the committee feels that there's a need to revisit it, it can be done at the second consideration stage. But for now, let's concern ourselves with clauses 45 to 48, which were deferred from the votes and proceedings. These were deferred. No amendments were advertised. So, members of the committee, what do you say to these clauses, 45 through to 48? They were deferred. Yes, I would have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's unfortunate that we've already accepted clause 44.
No, it wasn't.
Mr. Speaker, my understanding is that it wasn't accepted, but was rather abandoned.
Yes.
So, Speaker, the Ministry of Finance will object to clause 44 as it has been very much.
Which one are you talking about specifically?
Clause 44, the one relating to tax exemptions.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, we have reservations against it.
So it's been abandoned?
Yes, it should be abandoned. No, Mr. Speaker, if I'm given the opportunity, I'll explain why we have.
Even if it is abandoned, it can be revisited at the second consideration stage if the need arises. So for now, we take it that it's not being pursued now. Otherwise, we go back and take a second look at it. If it's necessary, second consideration stage, we look at it. But for now, we are looking at 45, 46, 47, 48. Are there any years, Honorable Minority Leader?
Yes, Speaker, it's interesting the zeal that the Deputy Minister is pursuing the project against clause 44. Speaker, I thought this had been taken at the level of cabinet, and there have been general agreement that this should be the way it should be. However, I think in the wisdom of Parliament, we believe there is a problem. And if we have to smith it in a way as to ensure that there are no breaches and that relevant tax is paid as and when it's due, I think that should be the object of the House. But the spirited attempt by the Minister to indicate that the Minister of Finance objects to it, it cannot be. This certainly would have had cabinet approval before it came to Parliament. And I'm surprised. I was surprised at the demeanor I'm surprised at the demeanor of the Deputy Minister for Finance in this matter. But Mr. Speaker, I think the ruling that you gave, really is a good one. It's a good one, and we have to look at it. Having said so, Mr. Speaker, the 45, I raised the issue that we cannot have the responsibility dualized in the manner it has been captured. 45.1 provides the chief director of each ministry or the chief executive of each department or agency shall ensure that the disaster management plan is prepared. And Mr. Speaker, my insistence was that that responsibility could not be dualized as the subsection of the 45.1 provides. Mr. Speaker, it cannot be taken as has been captured in 45.1. It's totally wrong. Responsibility should be assigned to a specific person, and it should not be dualized. It should not be either the chief director of the ministry or the chief executive of the department. It's wrong. That's the point that I raised, even though we had gone beyond it. And I propose that maybe the committee has a second look at that, which is what the presiding officer, the second deputy speaker, then said we should stand 45, 46, and 47 down, subject to that reconsideration at the level of the committee, and not really a second consideration. So that is what ruling or directive came from the chair. It was because of the construction. I think it's not good enough.
Can we hear from the committee or the deputy minister? Yes.
Mr. Speaker, the problem we had was with the use of the phrase the chief executive of each department or agency. The sense of the House was that departments or agencies may not be necessarily headed by chief executives, and so we should delete chief executive and replace him with heads. But in relation to the ministries, generally we didn't have a problem with the chief director taking responsibility for the preparation of the disaster management plan. So we had a proposed amendment, which is to delete chief executive and replace him with head, to cure that problem where certain departments or agencies may not be necessarily headed by a chief executive. Sometimes the designation is different. You can have executive secretary or some other terminology which describes the head of that particular agency.
So do I understand you to be proposing an amendment to clause 45?
That is
although
so.
No amendment has been advertised.
That is so, Mr. Speaker.
And can you, yes?
Mr. Speaker, the submission from the Deputy Minister seems to cure just one aspect of the subsection. The Minister would agree with me that in conferring responsibility or jurisdiction, it must be expressly conferred. It cannot be dualized. That's the issue that I'm raising. That, quite apart from the issue that you're articulating of the headship, the designation, the proper nomenclature to apply, that cures what you are proposing. That is in respect of the use of chief executive. But the other issue, which is much more fundamental, is who is jurisdiction conferred on. It cannot be dualized the way it's been expressed. That's the issue I'm raising. It must be on the shoulders of a particular officer at any level, not either or.
Honorable Minority, I understand the point you are making.
Yes.
But let me find out, the various ministries and departments, they all have chief directors, don't they?
They do, Mr. Speaker.
Every ministry has a chief director. the other heads of departments come under, administratively, come under the chief director. Is that not right? So if we give the responsibility to the chief director, wouldn't we have taken care of everything?
Okay. Very well, Mr. Speaker. Very well. But the only problem we would have is that there are some agencies of state which do not come under ministries. So agencies like Export Promotion Council, etc., some of them come directly under the office of president.
The chief director. But in the office of the president, don't we have a chief director?
So let's proceed and go.
Deputy Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I understand the point and would then propose that we delete or the chief executive of each department or agency and just leave it to read the chief director of each ministry, if that will cure the problem.
It would.
It won't?
It won't. If by this type of rendition we are not leaving out any particular institution, we are. Then we have a problem. Yes, sir.
Speaker, yes, by that phraseology you will. Now, there's a new term that I don't know whether it's been legislated or yet. But if you use the term chief spending officer, it covers everybody. The ministries and departments have a chief director. My minority leader is saying no, but that is it. Chief spending officer covers every agency. Yes, please. It is just in the PFM that will cover. So if you go to GMPC, there's a chief spending officer. If you go to GRA, the CEO is the chief spending officer. The term chief spending officer covers every institution, so it will be sufficient.
Honourable Member, I want to ask a question. Honourable Member for Utafu, I want to ask a question. Does it have this chief spending officer? Does it have any legal basis?
Mr. Speaker, the House is currently considering the PFM, and it has been. Oh, it's not anticipation. It's been made before here, and we had these similar challenges. So it's been coined to ensure that it covers every institution. Now, yes, we are anticipating it, but if you don't want to go there, you can also say the head of administration, which will amount to the same thing. But the technical term should be, I think, it will be better.
Yes, I realize you do.
Yeah, I quite agree with him, but in the Financial Administration Act is the principal spending officer of every institution and not the chief. That's what is used in the Financial Administration Act. The principal spending officer, to be more consistent than the chief spending officer.
Yes, I remember.
Mr. Speaker, in respect of preparation of disaster plans, what about the head of administration? And in every MDA, they have a head of admin, and we are charging that person to be responsible. Why is principal spending officer better than head of administration?
Because we are dealing with regulations. When you take the Financial Administration Act, in every institution, there's you can either be the chief director. Excuse me. You can either be the chief director or the chief executive or any other officer, and the term used is the principal spending officer, and that occurs for everybody.
Well, honourable members, Yes, I will.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member mentioned the Financial Administration Act. If we can be more specific on the actual provision, then it can help this house. But just saying the Financial Administration Act is just too broad and nobody knows exactly where you're talking. So if you can narrow it down, and it's even being repealed. Last time the Finance Committee met and...
Are you a friend?
I'm a friend, whatever. So it's being amended under the PFM bill that is going to come to this house very soon, the Financial Administration Act. So he should be specific, and again, that bill is also being amended currently to consolidate it into the Public Financial Management Act. So he hasn't helped the house in any way.
Very well. Honourable members, pardon me if I am order. Let's have some order, please. Pardon me if I'm rather lay about some of these things. But you see, what you spoke about, Honourable Day, what you spoke about, does it also cover, for example, at the district assembly level, we have coordinating directors, not chief directors. We have coordinating directors.
They constitute the principal spending officer. As far as the act is concerned, the coordinating directors. So it covers them.
Honourable members, can we take a close look at the Financial Administration Act that he is referring to see specifically the kind of provision which has been made there, and if it answers the concerns we are raising, then we can. You're saying it's being amended, but do we have to wait for the amendment? And does the amendment cover this particular expression we are talking about?
Mr. Speaker, that is why I wanted the honourable member to be specific. The amendment currently before the committee, it seeks to consolidate all enactments that deal with our public financial administration system. And the Financial Administration Act, the Internal Audit Act, and such acts
Why destroy?
No, that is not applicable. We are talking about permits.
They had permits, but they were not compensated. Mr. Speaker, if this law goes into effect and a similar thing happens, are you saying that people who are in a whole area, in a district, who do no flat of beds, there's a construction which is the Akosomo Dam, overflows East Bank, and the whole area is flooded, they will not be giving compensation as it happened in 1963. Mr. Speaker, I'm saying that this clause is so serious and we have to look at it again.
Well, yes, I remember, sorry.
Mr. Speaker, the example given by the deputy majority leader is different. When a dam is about to be built, the studies would show you which areas will be flooded. Under normal circumstances, those areas may not have been flooded, but because of the dam, that's why those areas will be flooded. That is a completely different issue. That can be catered for, in fact, and there's always the determination of who gets compensation based on the feasibility. So that cannot be the issue. The truth is that if we don't make it a law that once you don't have planning permission and you build, it is illegal, then people will find ways of going around it. I think it's as simple as this. If you don't have planning permission and you build, and the building gets removed, you don't get any entitlement of compensation at all. It should be as simple as that. If we begin to pick and choose, then there's opportunity for somebody to say that, okay, I built as of the time this law was not in existence and other things. I think it's a very simple thing. Let's outlaw anybody who builds without permission. It's an illegality in this country. That's the only way we can solve this. Because as we speak, it is going on somewhere else. And unless this law works, we don't have a chance of stopping it.
Well, so if I understand you, you're saying that whether it's in a prohibited area or not, if you don't have a permit, you're out. If it's in a prohibited area, you're also out. All right? Are we adding them? Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, in support of the amendment proposed by the committee chair, if a person built in the prohibited area, one of two things would have occurred. The person maybe would have a permit, properly so called. Now, if a person is issued the permit to build in the prohibited area, that area would have been rezoned. The rezoning would no longer make that place prohibited. Occasionally, we have people going behind the curtain, issuing permits for people to build. In that case, they would have built on the prohibited area without a proper permit, maybe fake permits. And Speaker, that person ought to be punished in much the same way as the person who gave the authorization in court. So, Mr. Speaker, either of them, you are culpable. I don't stand to reap from any compensation. So I agree fully with the proposal by the committee that has been put forward by the chairman of the committee.
Well, honorable members have put the question. As many as are in favor of the proposed amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is carried. Honorable members, I'll put the question with regard to which clause were we dealing with? Clause 49. Clause 49 as variously amended, standing part of the bill. As many as are in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 49 accordingly ordered to stand part of the bill. Clause 50. Honourable members, the Honourable Second Deputy Speaker to take the chair.
Request for information.
Yes, Chairman of the committee. Honourable Second Deputy Speaker to take the chair. Let's hear you, Chairman of the committee.
The amendment proposed, clause 50, subclause 1, add the following new paragraph, an individual. And the rationale is to provide for the organization to be able to request for information from an individual as well as from the other bodies indicated.
Honourable members, I put the question. Yes, Honourable Minority Leader.
The 50 is sequel to 49, and 49 specifically mentions dealing with the movable or immovable property of a person or of a public or private institution. Speaker, earlier we have dealt with the ministry, department, and agency. And I think that we should borrow the same language from 49.
Well, this has been a live coverage of happenings at Parliament today. today earlier, we did know that quite a number of things were supposed to have come off in Parliament, but unforeseen circumstances forced Parliament to step down a motion on the Constitutional Amendment Bill, which is currently before the House. The bill, as we all know, seeks to make changes to the country's election date. Speaker of Parliament, Edo Ajao, however, wants the House to fast-track the motion in view of its effects on the organization of the 2016 general elections. So, following that very development, there was also some other things that were done in Parliament, particularly those that have to do with another bill which was also being considered. It has to do with NADMO. So the NADMO bill was also discussed in Parliament today, as well as a few other things. There have been quite a number of exchanges as far as that very bill is concerned. A few more, we are told, will be playing out subsequently in the course of the day. But for now, we'll have to bring an end to that very coverage. My name is Kwabna Chenchan. Many thanks for staying with us.